When I confronted her about the cheating, she laughed and said, "I didn't mean to betray you. You just weren't that important." I silently started packing my things, and her laughter turned into fear. Then, calmly, I said, "I never wanted to leave you either, but you're not important to me anymore." 2 days later, her best friend came to my office and said something so strange that it completely shocked me. "My name is Aaron, and I'm a 34-year-old systems architect at a mid-sized tech firm in Austin. I've always been the guy who keeps his head down, solves problems quietly, and avoids drama. I'm not the loudest person in the room, but I've built a career on being reliable. My life was simple: work, gym, weekend hikes, and coming home to someone I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with." Her name was Lila. We'd been together for 6 years, living together for 3. She was a marketing consultant, charismatic, always the center of attention at parties. I loved that about her. She filled the spaces I couldn't. Or so I thought. It was a Tuesday night in late September when everything unraveled. I'd come home early from work, around 6:30 p.m., because I wanted to surprise her with takeout from her favorite Thai place. The apartment was quiet when I walked in, which was unusual. Lila's car was in the parking lot, so I knew she was home. I called out her name. No answer. Then I heard it, a low, muffled voice coming from the bedroom. "Male." My stomach dropped. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, frozen in the hallway with a bag of pad thai in my hand. Part of me wanted to turn around and leave. Part of me needed to know. I walked to the bedroom door. It was cracked open, and there she was, sitting on the edge of our bed, fully clothed, on the phone. But the voice I'd heard wasn't coming from her phone. It was coming from her laptop. A video call. And the man on the screen wasn't just anyone. It was her ex-boyfriend, Jordan. The same guy she'd sworn meant nothing to her. The same guy she'd told me she hadn't spoken to in years. I pushed the door open. She jumped, fumbled with the laptop, and closed it so fast the screen nearly cracked. Her face went pale. "Aaron, what are you doing home?" "What am I doing home?" I repeated slowly. "What the hell are you doing?" She stood up, running her hands through her hair. "It's not what it looks like." "Then what is it?" She didn't answer. She just stared at me, her mouth opening and closing like she was searching for the right lie. "How long?" I asked. "Aaron, please." "How long?" She sighed, looked away. "A few months. A few months." I felt like someone had knocked the wind out of me. I set the takeout bag on the dresser and sat down on the chair by the window. My hands were shaking. "Are you sleeping with him?" "No," she said quickly. "We're just talking." "That's it. Just talking," I echoed. "For months. Behind my back." "It's not like that," she said, her voice rising. "We're just reconnecting. He reached out to me over the summer, and you didn't think to tell me?" "Because I knew you'd overreact." "Overreact?" I stood up. "Lila, you've been secretly talking to your ex for months. What the hell am I supposed to do with that?" She crossed her arms. "You're being dramatic. It's not like I'm cheating on you. Emotional cheating is still cheating." She rolled her eyes. Actually rolled her eyes. "Oh my God, Aaron. This is why I didn't tell you. You make everything into this huge deal." That's when something inside me snapped. Not in a violent way, but in a quiet, final way. I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized I didn't recognize the person standing in front of me. "I want the truth," I said. "All of it." She hesitated. Then she laughed. Not a nervous laugh. A dismissive one. "Fine. You want the truth?" "Yes, I've been talking to Jordan. Yes, we've been flirting. And yes, maybe I've thought about what it would be like to be with him again. But I didn't mean to betray you, Aaron. You weren't that important." The room went silent. I stood there, staring at her, and I felt nothing. No anger. No sadness. Just nothing. I turned around, walked to the closet, and pulled out my duffel bag. I started packing. Clothes. Chargers. My laptop. Shoes. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice shaky now. I didn't answer. "Aaron, stop. Where are you going?" I zipped up the bag, slung it over my shoulder, and looked at her one last time. "I never wanted to leave you either," I said calmly. "But you're not important to me anymore." Her face crumpled. The laughter was gone. Fear replaced it. She reached for my arm, but I pulled away and walked out of the apartment without looking back. Update 1. I stayed at a friend's place that night, my buddy, Cameron, who lived about 20 minutes away. He didn't ask questions, just handed me a beer and let me crash on his couch. The next morning, I called in sick to work and spent the day staring at the ceiling, trying to process what had happened. By the afternoon, My phone was blowing up with texts from Lila. Aaron, please come home. We need to talk. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean what I said. You're overreacting. Can we please just talk about this? I didn't respond. On Thursday, I went back to the apartment while she was at work and grabbed the rest of my things. I left my key on the kitchen counter and blocked her number. I thought that was the end of it. I thought I could move on. Then, on Friday afternoon, something bizarre happened. I was at my desk, working on a server migration project, when my assistant knocked on my office door. Aaron, there's someone here to see you. I frowned. I wasn't expecting anyone. Who is it? She said her name is Tessa. She says she's a friend of yours. Tessa, Lila's best friend. The same woman who'd been in our lives for years, who'd come to our dinners, our game nights, who'd always seemed so sweet and supportive. I hadn't heard from her since I left. Send her in, I said, already feeling uneasy. Tessa walked into my office, and I could tell immediately that something was wrong. Her face was pale, her hands were trembling, and she looked like she hadn't slept in days. Aaron, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. We need to talk. About what? She closed the door behind her and sat down across from me. About Lila. And Jordan. My jaw tightened. I don't want to hear it, Tessa. You need to, she said urgently. Because what she told you isn't the whole story. I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed. Then what is? She took a deep breath. Lila didn't just reconnect with Jordan over the summer. She's been seeing him for over a year. And Aaron, she's been using you. Using me? What are you talking about? Tessa pulled out her phone and handed it to me. On the screen was a series of text messages between her and Lila. I scrolled through them, my stomach sinking with every line. Jordan wants me to move to Denver with him, but I can't afford to break the lease yet. Aaron's salary is covering most of our expenses. I just need a few more months. I'll tell him eventually, just not yet. I stared at the messages, my hands shaking. She's been planning to leave me this whole time? Tessa nodded, tears in her eyes. She told me months ago. She said she didn't love you anymore, but she couldn't afford to leave until she saved enough money. Aaron, I'm so sorry. I should have told you sooner, but she's my best friend, and I. Why are you telling me now? She looked down at her hands. Because 2 days ago, she asked me to lie for her. She wanted me to tell you that Jordan forced himself back into her life, that she was the victim, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't watch her destroy you like that. I set the phone down on my desk, my mind racing. Everything made sense now. The late nights. The sudden interest in finding herself. The way she'd pulled away over the past few months. She'd been planning her exit, and I'd been nothing more than a paycheck. Does she know you're here? I asked. Tessa shook her head. No, and she can't. If she finds out, she'll cut me off completely. Then why risk it? She looked me in the eye. Because you deserved better than this, Aaron. You always did. After Tessa left my office, I sat there for what felt like hours. The fluorescent lights hummed above me, and outside my window, I could see the Austin skyline turning gold in the late afternoon sun. Everything looked normal. Everything felt wrong. I pulled up my phone and started going through old photos. There we were at Zilker Park last spring, her laughing with a flower crown I'd bought from a street vendor. There we were at her sister's wedding in July, my arm around her waist, both of us smiling. Had she been planning to leave me even then? Had every moment been a lie? I opened my laptop and logged into our joint bank account, something I rarely checked because I trusted her to manage our shared expenses. The balance made my heart stop. We'd had nearly $22,000 saved up 6 months ago. Now there was $4,200. I started clicking through transactions. Transfers to her personal account. Hundreds of dollars at boutiques I'd never heard of. A $3,000 payment to something called Mile High Movers in Denver dated 3 weeks ago. She'd already hired movers. She'd been that ready to leave. Update 2. That weekend, I holed up in Cameron's apartment and went through everything with a fine-tooth comb. Every bank statement, every credit card bill, every receipt I could find in my email. The picture that emerged was devastating. Lila hadn't just been emotionally checked out. She'd been systematically preparing for her exit for almost 8 months. In February, she'd opened a new credit card in her name only. By March, she'd started transferring money from our joint savings. Small amounts at first, $300, $500, but by summer, she was taking $2,000 at a time. I'd been so busy with a major project at work that I hadn't noticed. Cameron sat across from me at his kitchen table, watching me compile everything into a spreadsheet. Dude, this is messed up, he said, shaking his head. You need to talk to a lawyer. I know. Like, today? Right now. He wasn't wrong. Monday morning, I called Greg Harrison, a lawyer I'd worked with on some contract reviews a few years back. I explained everything, sent him the bank statements, the screenshots from Tessa, everything. Aaron, I'm going to be straight with you, Greg said over the phone. In Texas, unless you were married, it's going to be hard to get that money back. Joint accounts mean joint ownership, legally speaking. Even if she was planning to leave, she technically had a right to that money. So I'm just screwed? Not entirely. We can close the joint account immediately and make sure she can't take anything else. As for the lease, if both your names are on it, you're both liable until it expires. When does it end? December 31st. So you've got about 3 months. My advice: get your name off that lease as soon as possible. Talk to your landlord, see if they'll let you out early. Otherwise, you could be on the hook for rent even after you've moved out. I spent that afternoon on the phone with my landlord, a gruff guy named Bill who owned half the apartment buildings in our neighborhood. I explained the situation, left out the messy details, just said we were splitting up and I needed to leave. Look, son, I sympathize, Bill said. But unless both of you agree to break the lease, or unless you find someone to take over your half, you're stuck until January. What if I just leave and she can't pay? Then you're both in breach of contract, and I'll come after both of you for the money. Plus damages. Great. I thanked him and hung up. Then I did something I swore I wouldn't do. I unblocked Lila's number and sent her a text. We need to talk about the lease and the joint account. Meet me at Cosmic Coffee tomorrow at 2 p.m. 3 dots appeared immediately. Then, okay. The next day, I got to the coffee shop 15 minutes early and sat at a table in the back corner. When Lila walked in at exactly 2 p.m., I barely recognized her. She looked exhausted, hair pulled back in a messy bun, no makeup, wearing sweatpants and an oversized hoodie. This wasn't the polished, put-together woman I'd known. This was someone who'd been unraveling. She sat down across from me without ordering anything. Thanks for meeting me, I said. What do you want, Aaron? I want you to agree to let me off the lease early. And I want to close the joint account. She stared at me. Why would I agree to that? Because it's the right thing to do. Because you've already taken most of the money anyway. Because we're done, Lila, and dragging this out doesn't help either of us. She looked down, picking at her cuticles. I can't afford the rent by myself. That's not my problem anymore. Her head snapped up. Not your problem? Aaron, we built a life together. You can't just walk away and leave me with nothing. I almost laughed. You were planning to do exactly that to me. That's not. I wasn't. Don't lie to me. Not anymore. I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshots Tessa had given me. I know everything. I know you've been planning to leave for months. I know about the movers. I know you've been draining our savings. So don't sit there and act like I'm the villain here. Her face went white. For a moment, I thought she might cry. Instead, she got angry. Tessa showed you that? That bitch. She had no right. She had every right. You asked her to lie for you. Lila stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. You know what, Aaron? Fine. You want out. Get out. I'll figure it out on my own. I always do. Good luck with that, I said quietly. She stormed out of the coffee shop, and I sat there for another 20 minutes, finishing my coffee and watching people walk by outside. I felt lighter somehow, like I'd finally cut the last thread tying me to her. Update 3. By mid-October, I'd moved into a small one-bedroom apartment in South Austin. It wasn't much, just 650 square feet with outdated appliances and carpet that had seen better days, but it was mine. No shared spaces. No ghosts of a relationship that had died months before I realized it. Work became my refuge. I threw myself into projects, stayed late, volunteered for assignments no one else wanted. My boss, Linda, noticed. Aaron, you're doing great work, she said one afternoon, stopping by my desk. But you look like hell. You okay? Just going through some stuff, I said. I'm fine. Break up. I nodded. Been there. It gets better. Trust me. She was right, in a way. The days got easier. I stopped checking my phone expecting messages from Lila. I stopped looking at old photos. I started going to the gym again, hiking on weekends, meeting up with friends I'd neglected during the relationship. But then, in early November, everything got complicated again. I was at home on a Wednesday night, making dinner, when someone knocked on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw Jordan standing in the hallway. My first instinct was to ignore him. My second was to open the door and punch him in the face. Instead, I did neither. I just stood there, staring through the peephole, until he knocked again. "Aaron, I know you're in there. I can hear your TV. Please. I just need 5 minutes." Against my better judgment, I opened the door. He looked rough, unshaven, tired, like he'd driven a long way. "What do you want?" "To apologize. And to tell you the truth." I crossed my arms. "You've got 5 minutes. He ran a hand through his hair. "I know you probably hate me. And you have every right to. But I need you to know that I didn't know about you. Not at first. Lila told me you two reconnected over the summer. That's technically true, but it started way before that. We started talking again in January of last year. But she told me she was single. She showed me pictures of a new apartment, said she'd moved out, and was starting fresh. I had no idea you two were still together until September. How'd you find out?" She slipped up. "Mentioned your name during a call. When I asked who you were, she froze. Then she admitted you two were still living together, but said you were basically roommates at that point, that the relationship was dead." I laughed bitterly. "And you believed her?" "At first, yeah. But then I started noticing things. She'd never let me video call her at home. She'd always have excuses for why she couldn't meet up. And when I finally pushed her on it, she broke down and told me the truth. That she'd been with you the whole time. That she'd been using you for financial support while she figured out her next move." "Why are you telling me this?" He looked me in the eye. "Because when I confronted her about it, she tried to turn it around on me. Said I'd manipulated her, that I'd ruined her relationship. And then she asked me for money. Said she needed $10,000 to get back on her feet. That's when I realized she'd been playing both of us." I leaned against the doorframe. "Did you give it to her?" "Hell no. I told her to lose my number. And that's the last I heard from her until 2 weeks ago." "What happened 2 weeks ago?" He pulled out his phone and showed me a series of texts. They were from Lila, sent at 2 a.m. "I made a mistake. I should have chosen you. Aaron doesn't understand me like you do. Can I come stay with you for a few weeks? I promise it'll be different this time." Jordan had left her on red. "I blocked her after that," he said. "But I wanted you to know what kind of person she really is. Because I didn't, and it cost me a year of my life." He turned to leave, then stopped. "For what it's worth, man, I'm sorry. About all of it." I watched him walk down the hallway and disappear around the corner. Then I closed the door and went back to making dinner. The pasta was overcooked, but I ate it anyway. Final update. It's been 5 months since that Tuesday night in September. 5 months since my life fell apart, and I had to put it back together piece by piece. Lila and I haven't spoken since that meeting at the coffee shop. Through Tessa, who I still talk to occasionally, I heard that Lila tried to stay in our old apartment but couldn't afford it. She ended up moving back in with her parents in San Antonio. Last I heard, she was working part-time at a dental office and still trying to convince people she was the victim in all of this. As for me, I'm doing okay. Better than okay, actually. In December, Linda called me into her office and offered me a promotion, senior systems architect with a 20% raise and my own team. I accepted on the spot. I've started seeing someone new. Her name is Harper, and we met at a rock climbing gym in January. She's a graphic designer, funny, grounded, and refreshingly honest. We're taking things slow, but for the first time in years, I feel like I'm with someone who actually sees me, who values me. Cameron jokes that I dodged a bullet with Lila. He's not wrong. Some nights, I still think about that moment in the bedroom. Her laugh, her words, the way she looked at me like I didn't matter. But it doesn't hurt anymore. It's just a memory now. A reminder of who I don't want to become and what I won't tolerate in the future. Tessa and I grab lunch every few weeks. She apologized more times than I can count, but I don't hold it against her. She was in an impossible position, and when it mattered, she did the right thing. That takes courage. Last week, I ran into Bill, my old landlord, at the grocery store. He asked how I was doing. "Better," I told him. "A lot better." "Good for you, son," he said, clapping me on the shoulder. "Life's too short to waste on people who don't appreciate you." He's right. And for the first time in a long time, I'm not wasting a single day.